What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Slanted Attic Experience. I'm your host, Tyler, and today we're diving into something special. The Sports Room, a brand new series where we break down the biggest moments, hottest debates, and most ridiculous takes of the world of sports. And to help me do just that, I've got two guys who live and breathe sports. First up, we've got Liam, a Philly native through and through. This man grew up watching Rollins, Utley, and Howard take the Phillies to the promised land and witness the Eagles finally deliver a Super Bowl and make grown men cry on Broad Street. A proud WVU grad, Liam bleeds gold and blue, especially for Mountaineers basketball. But his latest obsession? Lacrosse. He's all in on the PLL. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. He'll make sure that you do. And then there's Graham, representing the great state of North Carolina, where college hoops reign supreme. Growing up in the heart of Tobacco Road, he pledged his allegiance to Duke early and never looked back. But then he took his talents to Virginia Tech, where he became a die-hard Hokie, particularly when it comes to football. While he keeps tabs on U.S. pro sports, his real passion lies across the pond, following the EPL, where he rides with Brighton and Hove Albion, one of the most exciting clubs in the league. Together, we're tackling a stacked lineup of topics today. Super Bowl winners and future contenders, NFL history, from legendary teams to unforgettable trades, the ultimate basketball body, with Graham's first-hand experience of being tall and trying to bulk, the rise of sports gambling and ESPN's move into the betting world, the role of managers in baseball, the Black Sox scandal, and Pete Rose's Hall of Fame debate, the evolution of golf, LIV versus PGA, the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, and the Olympic squad, NCAA chaos, conference realignment, the new 12-team playoff, and the future of college football scheduling. And of course, our favorite athletes of all time. It's a jam-packed episode filled with bold takes, deep dives, and plenty of laughs. Whether you're here for the NFL debates, some college football madness, or just hear Liam and Graham go off about their favorite teams, we've got something for you. So grab a seat, settle in, and welcome to the Sports Room. Let's get right into it. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slanted Attic Experience. Today, we are delighted to bring you a brand new series. This is going to be part of a special release series, and we're going to be having Graham and Liam back on concurrent weeks when we can find the time. The series is going to be called The Sports Room. So if you can, infer for yourself, we're going to be talking about sports. So real quick, any big sporting updates that either of you guys can think about that you are, extremely opinionated on currently? Let's start with that, and then we're going to slide into the NFL.
You want a hot take?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can try and give you something. Those are retiring Cole, or not retiring Cole Hamil's number tonight, but they're honoring his retirement as a Philly tonight. So there's a lot of argument about it, if they should retire Rollins, Howard, Utley, Hamels, or any of those numbers.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting because those guys were part of the same team, huh?
And they won a World Series. The Phillies don't really retire that many numbers either. So they kind of make it this big deal, but I think they should. But
yeah, I think those are a number of historic players for Philadelphia organization.
Have they retired Halliday's number?
A little bit circumstantial, I think, but also he was very, very good for them. So
yeah, I mean, obviously it was tragic the way.
Yeah, but playoff with the no-hitter too, and the perfect game. So
yeah.
All right, Graham, give us your hot take.
Well, I don't really know if this is a hot take, but I would say that I don't see for the next 5 years in the NBA, I don't see any other team winning than the Nuggets and the Celtics.
Really? You don't think even a team like the Timberwolves or OKC has a chance in the next 5 years?
Nope. As long as the Celtics keep their core players together, which they probably will for another 3-4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and the Nuggets can keep their core together for another 3-4 years. The only other team I could see potentially, well, there's two, one in the East, one in the West. The only team in the East I think is Miami, and then the only team in the West that could challenge them is probably the Timberwolves, just because of the roster that the Timberwolves
Sure.
have, they can match up with the
What
Nuggets,
about
but
a team like Milwaukee?
they're past it. Giannis has too many injury issues. I think personally, and the kind of chemistry between Giannis and Dame doesn't really seem to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't think that. I think their window is kind of closed or is closing. Um, I think the Knicks still to have a chance. They could challenge Boston in the East. Ben would love to hear that, but um,
Of course.
I just think that the Celtics are they have so much firepower,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't really see anybody challenging in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I agree with you. Let's just roll right into the NBA then. We'll talk about that for a while since the playoffs just ended. Boston ended up winning 4-1 over the Dallas Mavericks, who made it out of the West. Wasn't really a good series, kind of terrible. I think everybody knew Boston was going to win the whole time.
Pretty much.
It was just a complete mismatch. Boston had every advantage in terms of like every position.
Mm-hmm.
Boston had an advantage. So, except for like Tatum versus Luka, you could go either way. And then, I mean, I think Kyrie, they pretty much neutralized Kyrie. I mean, Drew Holiday, Derek White. Kyrie didn't have a
Yeah.
great series, and then you basically force everything Luka to do everything. And so that was kind of their game plan defensively, was to just make Luka do as much as possible and kind of limit the other guys.
Mm-hmm. Boston can rotate so many guys, and they've been to the finals before too. So it's
Yeah.
like Luka's first time there. I know Kyrie hasn't won, but it's Luka's first time there with that team too. So like playing the Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum is just like a whole different animal.
I think the the key to that team, or at least one of the reasons why they made it so far and won it this year was, I mean, they were able to get Drew Holiday for practically nothing. I mean, I
Yeah.
think like a first round pick or something like that. I mean, they didn't have to give anything away to
From
get him.
Milwaukee too.
Yeah,
Their
yeah.
main competitor pretty much just handed
Hmm.
it to them.
Yep. I
Yeah.
mean, he fit into the team perfectly, kind of as a role player, defensive stopper. He allowed kind of Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown to not have to do as much defensively, take the pressure off of them so they can run the offense. So I that's I mean, their starting five is, you could argue their starting five, all of them are future Hall of Famers. I think Derek White's a little bit of a question mark, but I think
Mm-hmm.
Al Horford for sure, you could consider him a Hall of Famer. I think with his accolades and what he's done in his career, you could say the same thing for Drew Holiday as well. Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown. I mean, it's a
What about
really, really
KP?
solid team, and
Yeah.
Porzingis. So
He's kind of had an interesting trajectory, Porzingis.
yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
has.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I just know KP because Ben introduced me to the NBA, watching more NBA in college, and he's my favorite player. My favorite current player is Jokic, but if Porzingis didn't get hurt so often, I think he's had a lot of ailments in that department. He could be crazy.
I think the Thunder could maybe not in 5 years, but I think they're there in the West too. They're kind of loaded, and they just traded for Caruso for literally nothing. Like I cannot believe Chicago did that, but
That's true. I forgot about the Thunder. I think the
yeah, they're
Thunder
kind of
could be
easy
a
to
fit
forget about.
too. Yeah.
That is true.
because they're so young. But
Mhm.
Yeah, Holmgren's nice, dude.
Yeah, Shea is too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What do you guys think about this LeBron JJ Redick podcast head coach hiring drama? I listen to the ESPN radio in my car, like to and from job sites during work every day, and that I swear that's all they've been talking about the past month and a half since what's his face from UConn got
since Hurley
interested in the
turned down the
role.
job,
Hurley,
And
not since he
yeah.
turned it down. They were talking about it before that because it was a whole thing with Hurley, and then Anthony Davis had this guy. I can't provide a name, but Anthony Davis had a head coach he wanted to hire, and then that got totally overshadowed by the LeBron JJ Redick Hurley thing. So I don't know. What's your take, Graham? You go first, then Liam, you follow up here. I don't really know.
well, so JJ Redick was one of my favorite players growing up. Like as a kid, being a Duke fan,
Mm-hmm.
love JJ, love
Graham's a
watching JJ.
homer.
But and I've listened to his podcast quite a bit. I've
Oh, really?
listened to some of the, not like listen fully, but would watch some of the clips every now and then. And you can tell he's a very basketball oriented guy, has a high basketball IQ, is a savant of the game, knows what he's talking about. Um, and so I think that for LeBron at the end of his career, I think he's looking for somebody that kind of sees the game the same way that he does. And him and JJ are practically the same age. And so I think they've been friends for a good amount of time as well. And so I think for LeBron, it's more having a coach in there that's kind of got the same philosophies. They both were coached by Coach K, JJ at Duke, and then LeBron with USA basketball team. So I think like for LeBron, it's the perfect hire. I don't know for the Lakers what this means. I mean, I think their opportunity has kind of dwindled away. I don't think they'll make it. I mean, the Nuggets are just a tough matchup for them. And so I don't think they'll ever, if they have to play the Nuggets every year in the playoffs, I don't think they're going to get past them. So unless JJ can figure something out and figure out a way to expose the Nuggets and their deficiencies and whatnot.
Sure.
But
Sure. Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points. I agree with pretty much what you said. Middle line, kind of right there with you. I do think it's a definite question mark for the Lakers, and it's great for LeBron. One big issue I want to pose that they've been talking about the last 2 months: JJ Redick does not have coaching experience, so I'm interested to
that
see how
doesn't
that
matter.
affects.
Yeah.
Okay.
That does not matter.
I don't think that really matters that much at this level anymore. My grandfather always says you can't really coach these guys. It's just putting in like philosophies and concepts and then kind of like treat them like adults, I think. So I think JJ will be fine from that aspect. I just don't think the Lakers are that good. That's their biggest problem is everyone's going to want them to be good because they have LeBron and they're the Lakers, but I just don't think they're really that good. And last couple of years, their record shows what kind of team they are, I think. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with being a coach because he's kind of like a little sensitive and things like that. I think JJ, but like I just think he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, so it just comes from like that. Like, I'm pro JJ too. As a Sixer, he was pretty sweet. With Joel, especially, he was sweet. So I definitely think he'll be. Lakers are going to be that good, and he's probably going to be the fall guy for it. So
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, those guys have to create media, right? And creating the drama, saying that he's not going to be a good fit, and the Lakers might be out of a good head coach, and they don't know what's going on. It might give a false pretext in what they're going to do next season. Exactly like you said, Liam, they just don't have a good roster. So
yeah,
I think that's a
I think
good
it
way
might
to
have been
put it.
Bonnie Williams was also rumored to go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After he got fired by the Sixers and they had to buy him out for $65 million, He had like 6 years remaining for $65 million on his contract.
With Detroit.
Why
yeah.
you would ever give a coach that much money, especially when you're like the shittiest team in the NBA? Makes no sense.
And then fire him. It's like doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
After like a season and a half, 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're gonna sign him for like 8 years, you think you would make it a project, like give him time to develop the young guys. But yeah, I don't know.
I heard there was drama in the front office with him. That's why they wanted to get rid of him, because didn't a new ownership group or something take over? There's a new GM or something. Something happened.
I have no idea.
So I don't know, man. I think that's a poor monetary decision for sure.
There's a
it's
lot of
soccer
poor
now.
monetary decisions that happen in sports. And it's usually the same teams. It's the same
It is.
culprits. It's the same
That's so funny.
like basement organizations that are just dysfunctional and go for the flashy piece and don't actually do their research and due diligence. And yeah, I mean, you see it all the time. That's why, like, even in professional sports in America where there's a salary cap, you see dynasties and teams have continual success, and it's the same teams because they have an organizational structure that's already in place. So it doesn't matter who the coach is. The process is still going to be the same. Everything's still going to be the same. You know, the only thing that might change is the playbook or the calls or, the actions that you run and whatnot, depending on what the sport is, obviously. But the structure itself never changes. And that's why the Steelers, for example, I mean, even though recently they've been the 8-8 franchise, they've been Mr. Mediocre.
Yep.
But they have that history. I mean, there's a reason why they're never in the bottom of the barrel. They're never 3-13 or, you know, have a shitty ass record. They're always at least mediocre.
Yep.
And that has a large part to do with just the organization itself and the structure and the players that they draft.
Yeah. What's the statistic? Steelers have had 3 coaches in the past like 60 years, and the Panthers or the Browns have had like 25 or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Cleveland's probably have more quarterbacks, so
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Did Matt Schaub play there? I always forget. I know he was
Cleveland?
on
I don't
Houston.
think so.
Did he play for
Cleveland? No,
Cleveland?
I don't think so.
I think Jesse Houston, I thought.
He played for the Texans for a while. That's where he had his most success.
Yeah.
They made it to the playoffs a couple years when he was
With
there.
him and Andre Johnson.
Yeah, back when J.J. Watt was in beast mode. He was like getting defensive player of the year like 3 out of 4 years.
Yep. So this says Pittsburgh has had 3 coaches in the last, 56 years? No, 55 since 1969. The Seahawks have had 7, Cowboys have had 8, Packers 9, Broncos 9. Doesn't have the most. So
yeah, the Panthers have had 3 in like 3 years. So
yeah.
That's craziness. Craziness.
Well, actually, technically 4 if you count their interim coach. They've had 4 coaches in 3 years.
That's absurd. That's what makes me feel bad for a player like Baker Mayfield, who has never had a lasting career in an organization for, with the same coach for more than a season and a half or something like that.
Well, again, dysfunctional organization. I don't know why Cleveland gave him up in the first place. Made no sense.
It's good.
You bring in Deshaun Watson, who had all these charges and allegations against him. Give him the biggest contract in NFL history at the time. Most guaranteed money. Makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Yeah. And he probably did that shit.
Yeah.
That
and I guarantee you with this roster that Cleveland has, they would have easily made it to the playoffs with Baker, and they might have made it to like AFC Championship game. I mean, that's a really good roster that they have.
Dude, their roster is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we stay in the game every time with them the past couple years. I mean, our offense has been atrocious. So our defense has been propping us up. And I mean, the Browns defense is better than the Steelers in almost every statistic. They were crazy.
Even Joe Flacco was good for Cleveland, and he just like showed up and he absolutely balled. So with Baker, I think they would have been fine. He took Tampa Bay to the playoffs.
Joe
That team is like
Flacco.
aging. The division kind of stinks, but I think people get like quarterbacks. Everyone just gives up on you so easily. And I don't think anybody gets like a fair shot. And I think you might as well have a decent quarterback and build like a nasty team, or you have like your superstar quarterback and kind of go from there. And like they just keep trying to find a superstar quarterback for no reason, and they could win with Baker, and they just don't want to.
Yep. Perfect example of that is the 49ers. Although, they haven't since they won what, like 7 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that.
No, it's been
They haven't won since like the 80s or 90s.
Really?
I think it was like
Super Bowls,
90.
They lost to Baltimore in I think 2012, and then they lost to Kansas City twice.
I want to say like 94 was the last time they won it.
I'll fact check you.
Because I went with Kaepernick, and then he lost.
Yeah.
That was the game that the lights went off in New Orleans.
I remember back when that was a debate, like Alex Smith and Kaepernick. I was team Alex Smith, man. I thought they should have just like Kaepernick was nice, but
He was like lightning in a bottle for 2 years, and then
he was
off,
and then once teams figured out how to kind of stop the read option, then he wasn't as much of a threat because he used his ability to run as it was like he used his running to then pass. And then once teams were able to stop him running the ball, then that kind of went away and he wasn't as effective.
Yeah. Those Niners teams were good though with like Harbaugh, and I think Alex Smith is an underrated quarterback of the last 10, 15 years.
All he did was take teams to the playoffs. Yes. I mean, they weren't ever like at the level to win a Super Bowl, but I mean, I think he took the Niners to AFC or NFC Championship game, and then took the Chiefs. I don't know if they went to an AFC Championship game, but pretty much every year he was there until Mahomes got there. I mean, they were in the playoffs. And then obviously Mahomes came in, took over, and the rest is history. But
I think Washington was going to be decent too, and then he broke his leg and like got hurt, but they were actually supposed to be okay. So and then like he got hurt, and that's what stopped him.
Yeah, and then his kind of career ended after that. He didn't really find his legs after that.
Yep. So Alex Smith went to the playoffs, played 7 playoff games, won 2, but his statistics in the playoff games is a passer rating of 94.7, 1,745 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 2 picks. And yes, you were correct. Last time the Niners have won the Super Bowl was in 1994.
I think, when did Dallas win? 98, was it? Or
95.
I think, I was going to say, I know everyone gives Dallas a bunch of crap for it, but San Francisco actually has got a longer drought, which I think is funny. Obviously, they've gone back since then, and Dallas hasn't, but they still haven't won one.
Yeah, but still, I mean, the Niners, in terms of football royalty, I would consider them, right up there with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And
Pittsburgh.
They have a pretty strong rivalry. It's not as much anymore, but they used to be like one of the premier rivalries in football. And
in the 80s.
Yeah, back in the 80s, because they would play in the championship game like every year against each other. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be a contender for the next who knows how long. As long as Kyle Shanahan's there and Brock Purdy's there, I think they'll be a contender for a while. So, and their roster's just filthy. Even though they might get rid of, whatever happens to Ayuk. There's been talks that he wants out, he wants to leave.
He wants too much money, dude. He wants too much.
Yeah,
money.
They have too many
I
mouths.
think he'll end up staying though.
Think so?
I do. I don't know why. I just think he will.
Yeah, I just haven't seen enough of him being like that next level receiver to afford paying him that salary. To be honest with you, I don't know how he would do in the open market with the other.
He's better than Debo, if you ask me. I think Debo's all hype.
I kind of as a
He
route
had his
runner,
great year. He was great that one year, and then he kind of
Yeah.
got banged up the next year, and he just hasn't been the same. And I just think that I don't know how to use him either. He jumps between two positions, but I think he's kind of dropped off since his like monster season in paycheck.
Right. Well, I think part of the problem is like him and McCaffrey kind of play a similar role. So
Yeah,
it's
they do.
like a lot of the touches that Debo normally would have gotten before McCaffrey was there are now going to McCaffrey. And I don't know. I kind of agree with you about Ayuk being better. I think he's a better receiver just in general. Like he's a better
Yeah.
route runner. He's bigger. He's stronger. He can kind of go up and get the ball and elevate better than Debo can. You know, most of Debo's like touches are out in space. You know, it's like they run like a little flare for him or, you know, a wide screen pass where he has like three blockers and weaves his way through. It's not really like down the field type
Yeah.
action as much.
And that was the debate when he was like getting paid because he didn't want to be a running back, but he's kind of like a running back.
Yeah, he's kind of like a scat back
Yeah.
almost.
Kind of tough in that market though, because I'm sure like the running back market isn't nearly as volatile and as high paying as the wide receiver market. So I'm sure he wanted to get that bag.
Yeah, I'm sure. But
Yeah, but you're right. I think McCaffrey definitely affected that a lot because he does all those rollouts and everything too. So
well, and I don't necessarily think that San Francisco was originally planning on getting McCaffrey, but when they found out that he was available, it's like, well, I mean, let's try. We might as well. And then the Panthers actually went through with it, and like they were probably just shocked. They probably didn't even expect the trade to go through.
but we were making fun of their owner earlier. I forget all the guys they traded, but the amount of picks and resources they got for
Oh yeah, Tepper.
McCaffrey, just the first round pick, just everything they've done is just awful.
Tepper's an idiot. He's an idiot. We've had since he's taken ownership, we've had 4 coaches in 3 years. It's been terrible. There's been a different quarterback every single year. I mean, it's just there's no semblance of any like organization whatsoever. It's everything's just disorganized and there doesn't seem to be like a long-term plan. And so I don't know. Also, I heard last year, like when up like coming up to the draft, that Frank Reich, who's the head coach of the Panthers at the time, wanted to draft CJ Stroud. And the owner told him, no, you're drafting Bryce Young. And so that like immediately caused tension between them. And then now you look, CJ Stroud had a brilliant rookie season, led his team to the playoffs. Obviously, different circumstances, but
Yeah, he walked into
know,
a much better
I
situation there in Houston.
Frank Reich can easily be like, see, I told you, this is the guy I
Yeah.
wanted. I told you. So I don't know. I personally thought Bryce Young. I was fine with picking Bryce Young. Uh, I think he'll be okay in the long run, but he seems like it's going to be tough for him, and it's going to take him a while to kind of get used to everything. Just being so undersized. Like Drew Brees didn't have success his first couple of years in the league. It took him like 4 or 5 years to kind of get adjusted and to be able to figure out the passing lanes to get through so you're not getting all your passes blocked down and then that sort of thing. But we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, to provide a little bit of context, Graham is a Panthers fan.
Yeah, that's what I can tell by the way he was talking about. I think he'll be good. I just think the team isn't good, and I'm not a fan of drafting your quarterback first when there's no structure around him. So I
I
think you should
agree.
just build your offensive line and your defensive line first, and then maybe draft a quarterback, receiver in the same draft kind of thing, and then try and pick off a free agent receiver is probably what I would try and do.
I agree. Because what they kind of did was, I mean, it's like the typical thing that some organizations do where it's like they prop up their quarterback as the savior, the guy that's going to lead. You can't just rely on the quarterback. Like you need other pieces around you. The quarterback can't just do everything. I mean, we've seen this before. Like quarterbacks can only do so much. You know, if Justin Herbert had the right team around him, if Matt Stafford when he was in Detroit, if he had the right team around him, they might have had more success. It's like it's not just the quarterback. Like you can agree that certain quarterbacks, you know, they can make magic out of nothing and get to a point, but there's if you don't have a full roster around you, it makes it much more difficult. So,
I mean, even Cincinnati's gone far, but like Joe Burrow's run around for his life out there, and that is the last thing you want your franchise quarterback to be doing, and then he gets hurt. So there's they say
yeah,
left tackle is the second most important position in football, so it's not your receiver or your running back, it's your left tackle, or maybe right tackle if you have a lefty quarterback, but
Michael Penix.
yeah, or Mike Vick.
Yeah.
or Tua.
What do you guys think of that whole situation down there in Atlanta? The fine for tampering. Philly did not catch a fine for that.
They
Interestingly
didn't
enough.
tamper.
Yeah.
The Eagles did not tamper. Um, James Franklin was in a press conference and was just talking about free agency and was like, "Oh yeah, the Eagles must have contacted Saquon, yada yada yada." So then the league was like, "Oh, they contacted Saquon. Let's like look into it." So that's the whole reason they even investigated it, I think. But it's pretty hilarious that they tampered to get Kirk Cousins, if you ask me.
Yeah. And then they go
So
out and draft a kid, what was it, 8th overall?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
he was overvalued at that spot as well.
I think they just signed him today or yesterday. Penix.
Craziness. Yeah, I saw a CBS post on Instagram, and it was like best starting and backup quarterback duos, and they had Russell Wilson and Justin Fields as number one, and then they had whatchamacallit, Penix and what's his face is like number 3 or something like that, and Kirk. I thought that was ridiculous. I was like, okay, I would take Patty Mahomes and whoever his backup is.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how you can put some guy number 3 as like if he hasn't even played a game.
Right.
Like there's a lot of backups that are could be a starter on a team. You know, like Gardner Minshew played well for the Colts last year as a
He's
backup.
good.
He's
Yeah.
solid. He's a solid backup. Jacoby Brissett.
He's good too.
Yeah,
I thought the Browns should have stuck with him for a little bit longer.
I thought so too.
I agree.
He's in is he back in New England now?
I have no idea. Let me look it up because I know Gardner Minshew Mania went to Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Geno Smith like hung out for a while. He probably could have started a couple places with just backup Russ.
Yeah, he's on the Pats. He's going to be the starter.
They drafted Drake May, right? Is he going to be ready? No.
Probably not. I don't have high hopes for Drake May, unfortunately.
Me either. We watched him in school all throughout college. You remember that, Graham?
He had been touted as a prospect since he was like a freshman. And he's got size, but he's not the most mobile quarterback. And personally, I don't know. I think you need, especially in today's game, you need a guy that can just create with his legs some way or another. And if you're the idea that there's ever going to be a Tom Brady that can have that much success, it's like almost impossible. Like every other quarterback that's had success other than Tom Brady and Peyton Manning has been like a mobile quarterback that can at least move around and has incredible athleticism. Like, even though you don't think Aaron Rodgers is like this incredibly athletic guy, Aaron Rodgers is an incredible athlete, like an incredible athlete.
Mhm. What about
And
Big
so,
Ben?
like,
Don't throw shade on Big Ben over here, bro. He's got 2
well,
Super
Big
Bowl
Ben is an
rings.
incredible athlete as well. Like,
Big
you
boy.
don't, the reason why Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were so good was because they were just like football nerds that studied defenses and figured things out.
Yeah.
But they couldn't move for shit, and that style of quarterback is just completely gone. You don't see any of them anymore.
Yep. The way Big Ben used to shed guys coming in, dude, is oh my god. That's like one of my favorite things to watch. That I always get the James Harrison interception return for the touchdown before halftime and the Santonio Holmes catch. I mean, those are obviously my 2 favorite plays of all time.
Yeah.
James Harrison being first. I mean, that was absolutely incredible for a big dude to take it back 99 yards to the house too with 10 seconds left is absurd. And if Larry Fitzgerald didn't run into the player on the sideline, he 100% would have tackled James Harrison before he made it to the end zone. I don't know if you guys have seen that part of the clip. 100%.
Yeah, I have. I have.
Mm.
But that's one of the first Super Bowls I really remember like watching fully and like remembering it happening and everything. I don't think I was too happy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that was just
I was
Patriots
rooting
for
for
10
Arizona.
years. Oh,
Yeah.
come on, man. You like Kurt Warner? Big Kurt Warner guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
They
he
beat the
was
Eagles
great.
that year in the NFC Championship games.
yeah, yeah. They did.
Was that with McNabb?
Yeah, that was like one of McNabb's last years, I think.
Sean, Jeremy Macklin, Shady.
What are your thoughts on McNabb, Liam? I'm curious to hear from an Eagles fan.
Yeah, like I don't really have a problem with him. I think I was a little young to like have all the hate for him that people have and like all those kind of things. But like statistically, he is the best quarterback in franchise history, like by far. He quarterbacked the team for their most successful like years in franchise history. They're not really that successful in franchise overall. People hate him because he didn't win the Super Bowl, but he choked. Like they went to 4 straight NFC Championship games. He lost 3 of them. He was like throwing up in the Super Bowl because he was nervous. I don't know. A lot of people don't like him, but I think you gotta respect him for being the best quarterback in franchise history. But I think there's just something about his like personality and vibe that people just don't like.
Well, maybe it could be the fact that he just was so nervous about the fact that if he lost the game, that the Philly fans would like set his house on fire or some shit.
Yeah, and like he got the whole thing with To, and it's like, why are you fighting with To? This is like a top 3 wide receiver of all time, and he's like playing on a broken leg, and he has 120 yards in the Super Bowl, and then he gets in a spat with McNabb and chased out of town. It's just stupid.
To be fair, I think that was 100% on To. Like, there's
Yeah, but I just think McNabb's a baby.
personally, I think that was probably on To. I just knowing his personality and his ego, like, yes, he played on a broken leg, but he was probably yelling at McNabb, like, dude, throw me the ball more. I'm like,
Oh, I'm
I am
sure.
throwing you the
Yeah.
ball, and you're playing on a broken leg. Like, our game plan isn't necessarily just around you because you're kind of limited. So it's like, I don't know what the whole story was, but because he
Yeah,
only played 1 year there, right? He played that year that they made it to the Super Bowl and then left the next year
yeah, I
for
think he might have
Dallas.
been there for like 2 or 3 years, or maybe if he fell out that year after the Super Bowl.
Gotcha.
But yeah, 04, 05. So I don't know. That's just the 1 year or 2.
I didn't know he ended his year in or his career in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
he
he
played with
played.
Ocho Cinco, I think.
Yep,
No
played briefly.
way.
No, I think was it Cincinnati? He played in Buffalo too.
Yeah, he played in Buffalo in 09. I got the stats up. He played San Francisco 96 through 2003, Philly 2004, 2005, and then he played with Dallas from 06 to 08, then went to Buffalo and then Cincinnati.
He was good.
He had 4 solo tackles in 2010.
Nice.
Roma throwing too many interceptions.
He had too many picks.
Wait, in
That's
2010?
Yeah, that would
He
have
was
been Andy
not
Dalton,
Cowboys
right?
then, was he?
No, that was Cincinnati. It would have been Andy Dalton.
Oh, Andy Dalton.
That's
No, I
hilarious.
think that was even before Andy Dalton, wasn't it?
It could be rookie Andy Dalton.
Yeah, it might be rookie or like young Andy Dalton.
All right, let's see. Bengals roster 2010. They were 4-12.
Oof.
Coach was Marvin Lewis. Carson Palmer.
Ah,
Forgot about
he was
Carson
probably
Palmer.
hurt that year though, because he was hurt like every year he played
He
with the
had
Bengals.
he had 3,970 yards, which is more than probably any Bears franchise quarterback's top season. But he had 26 touchdowns, 20 picks.
20 picks, man.
Cedric
That's a lot.
Benson, Chad Johnson, Terrell Owens. I don't see anybody else notable. I don't know. One thing I did want to ask you guys about, to elaborate on a little bit, because I watched a documentary recently, and I don't know too much about this era of football, but I kind of want to get into Jim Kelly's Buffalo Bills and the 4 straight Super Bowl losses, because I thought that was an incredible stat that'll probably remain unbroken. I just don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, I watched that documentary too. Was it Wide Right?
On Netflix?
I don't know if it was. I don't remember where I watched it.
I watched the 30 for 30 on it. I think it's like the 4 Falls of Buffalo or something.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's what it's called. That's what it's called.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
we've all seen it then.
Yeah. So kind of how it all started was Scott Norwood. He had a field goal to win it in 1990, and wide right.
Mm-hmm.
So
How long was that field goal? It was something like what? It was something shortened by today's standards, but I think at the time
I think it was mid
I think it was
40s.
like 48 yards or something like
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't a short kick. It wasn't a gimme
Yeah.
kick.
But you're right. I think if you look at the clip, you're like, oh, that's not that far. But like back in the day, I'm trying to
He
remember what they say in the
barely missed it too.
Yeah. I don't think they
47.
really expected him to just like boot it in and trot off the field.
No.
Yeah.
Because especially
Brutal.
back then too, kickers weren't as accurate.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. In today's league, man, I feel like you got to be able to be making 55-yard field goals on a regular basis with Justin
Dude,
Tucker out here.
if you have a week where you miss like 2 or 3 kicks,
Out of a job.
you're gone. Like it's brutal. Unless you're one of the established guys and like you just have a bad slump
Mm-hmm.
and then you are able to recover, but you've already established yourself as like consistent 80-85% field goal percentage for a couple years, like a team might have more loyalty to you. But if you're a guy just coming in like off free agency or whatever, you have a bad couple games, you're gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it all started with that kick in 1991, and then they went on to proceed to lose the next 3.
Yep. Well, 2 of them were against the Cowboys, and they just got obliterated by the Cowboys. Those contests weren't even close. The other one, I think, was against Washington. I think they had a chance in that one. That was probably that one in the New York Giants one. Like I think those were the first 2. Those were the times where I think they had the best chance. And then the 2 years after that, that was when the Cowboys started their dynasty, and
Wiped the floor with them.
they didn't really have a chance to beat the Cowboys.
And that's almost like a hard thing looking back on history that you don't get like the everyday feel for it. And like, yeah, they maybe should have won them, but you don't realize that like Dallas is going to be a dynasty when they start winning Super Bowls. Or you might look back in 20 years and be like, oh, the Niners lost 2 Super Bowls. That stinks. But you don't have the context of it. You don't really see Kansas City just being like nasty for 20 straight years and not giving anybody a chance. Like you might look back and like, oh, they failed a bunch, but Cowboys won what, like 6 Super Bowls in the 80s and 90s. So how are they supposed to compete with that?
Yeah. It was like, well, and it was like the Cowboys were shitty before. Like I think the year before, they won the Super Bowl, or a couple years before, like they had a losing record, and they weren't like that great. And then I think they drafted Troy Aikman in 1989, got Emmitt Smith from the Herschel Walker trade, which I think alongside like the Bryce Young trade, that might go down as like one of the worst trades in NFL history.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so you can look up Herschel Walker trade. But basically the Minnesota Vikings, I think this was it was when Jimmy Johnson first got the job for the Cowboys. So I want to say like 88, 89, something like that.
October 12th,
And
1989.
yeah. And so they made this trade they traded Herschel Walker, who was like their star running back at the time. I think he had made a couple Pro Bowls. And they traded him for like a shit ton of picks.
Mm-hmm.
Like a ridiculous amount of picks. It was absurd. And Dallas used all of those picks to basically build up their roster, which created their dynasty. Like half of their notable players came from those picks. And I think Emmitt Smith was one of them.
Yeah, I wish it told me what player they chose with each one of these picks, but I'll kind of break down the trade details here. So the San Diego Chargers got Darren Nelson, the Minnesota Vikings got Herschel Walker, Dallas's third round pick in 1990, San Diego's fifth round pick in 1990, Dallas's 10th pick in 1990, and Dallas's third round pick in 1991. Or I'm sorry, Dallas's 10th round pick, not 10th pick overall. The Cowboys received linebacker Jesse Solomon, linebacker David Howard, cornerback Isaiah Holt, defensive end Alex Stewart, Minnesota first round picks, or one Minnesota first round pick in 1990, first round pick in 1991, a first round pick in 1992, second round pick in 1990, second round pick in 1991, and a second round pick in 1992. And then they got a couple of other later picks. So yeah, they got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks plus 4 players.
Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, the worst trade of all time is so Mike Ditka was the coach of the Saints, and he wanted to draft Ricky Williams, so he traded up to pick Ricky Williams. Traded the entire draft, every single pick, and then the first round pick from the next year for Ricky Williams. The entire draft for one player.
That's crazy.
Trade.
Yeah, his team traded every single pick they had in the draft, plus 2 of his first 3 picks in the 2000 draft for the 5th overall pick. The Saints struggled in 1999, and Ditka got fired.
It's funny because I think all Eagles fans wanted Ricky Williams, and not McNabb. Was that same draft?
How do you think that would have transpired? Would it?
Had no idea, but I think the McNabb was the right pick.
Yeah,
I think McNabb was the right pick too. I mean, Eagles fans
My
give
dad
him
gives
a
all
lot of
credit to Andy Reid. He just thinks Andy Reid's a genius when it comes to quarterbacks. So same thing with Mahomes. Even Alex Smith got good. Like everything he touches. Mike Vick resurgence. He knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Andy Reid's going to go down as one of the best coaches in NFL history. I mean, he's got 3 Super Bowls now. He's up there with like the greats, and who knows how many he ends up winning. I think it'll kind of depend on how long he wants to coach for, because he's kind of getting up there in age. But I mean, he could potentially match Belichick. There's a chance he could get to 6. And I think if he got to 6, I think he would elevate over Belichick. I think I would consider him the greatest coach over Belichick. Because
you think Bill Belichick would come back if Andy Reid tied his stat?
well, I don't think even if he did come back, I don't think Belichick's going to win another Super Bowl.
Right.
Like you were saying about that trade, I wonder how many just franchises like are kicked off because of awful trade, and someone goes down the tank, and someone just goes and wins the championship because of some terrible trade. Even like Boston, their window closed. KG, Paul Pierce, everyone's on these crazy contracts. They're old. And then Brooklyn just bailed them out of like every single bad contract they had and set up this entire dynasty that they're now about to go on. Like, I feel like there's so many trades. Even like they traded Kobe Bryant, and then you don't have Kobe Bryant and he goes on to win 5 rings. Like, what do you like? Moves like that just blow my mind.
Yeah. Well, and then you got the Celtics, like they got Jaylen Brown from that, and I think they got Jason Tatum from that trade too. Like they wouldn't have been in the top 5 to be able to draft those guys because they actually had solid teams.
They did.
But because the Nets were so bad and they got those
Yeah.
picks from the Nets, they were able to draft those guys. So, and they, like the Celtics being a good, solid organization, they drafted the right guys. Meanwhile, Philly, no offense, but
Oh, yeah.
Philly drafts Markelle Fultz, and they take
Yeah.
him number 1 overall over Jason Tatum, who to me was clearly the number 1 player in that draft.
Agreed. Me and my brothers have some conspiracy theories on Colangelo, but I don't know if I need to get into those. But I think the NBA forced him to do that trade. That whole thing was fishy to me. Basically, Tim Hinkie was just forced out of his role for no reason other than just like they weren't winning enough. But Oklahoma City basically just did exactly what he did, but 10 times worse, and like nothing happened to them. And then they put Brian Colangelo as the GM, and then he has a burner account tweeting bad stuff about his own players. And then even that trade, Boston would have just taken Tatum first overall. They were never going to draft Markelle Fultz. We traded up, promised them we were going to take Markelle Fultz, and told them we're not taking Tatum. That's why we did the trade. None of that makes any sense to me. And I just think they were mad at the Sixers for the process, so they then put this guy in charge to make all these terrible decisions. But that's more just my excuse.
Who is the number 2?
I think Lonzo went second, and he was always going to be a Laker. He was never not going to be a Laker, so it just did not make sense.
So it's like they could have gotten Fultz at 3 then.
3, yeah, but they promised Boston to take him at 1 and then traded up to 1. That doesn't make any sense at all. And then Fultz forgets how to shoot and gets the yips. It's just like, what?
I mean, I think he's made a decent career, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's some of those guys that kind of because Markelle Fultz kind of just came out of nowhere. Like I didn't really. I mean, I follow Duke basketball, so I watch Jason Tatum all the time. So I kind of knew how good Jason Tatum was. I didn't really watch Markelle Fultz, but he kind of just came out of nowhere. And then everybody was like, "Oh, he's the top prospect." Jason Tatum, I thought,
yeah,
but
he went to Washington.
Washington.
Yeah.
Not a very big basketball school, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my God, what conference are they in? Do they play any notable teams? How do they noted?
They're in the Big Ten now.
They're in the Pac-12.
Well, they were. They're in the Big Ten now. They just did a conference realignment. So now Washington and Oregon are in the Big Ten. USC and UCLA, I think, are in the Big Ten as well, right?
No, Stanford went to the ACC.
And then Stanford and Cal went to the ACC. So the conferences are just completely messed up.
Yeah.
And I hate it. Because it's all become about money. And it's it kind of defeats the purpose in a sense.
Dude, are you really gonna send these kids from Stanford to fucking Delaware to play a match of tennis, or to Virginia Tech to play a match of tennis on a Wednesday at 3:00? Is that feasible for the kids to do while they're in school? Studying for a career to get a degree. Travel all the way across the country,
and they're gonna have to do that. 10 times a season.
Yeah.
Back and forth flights with flight time change and jet lag, and I mean, it's going to take a toll on the players. So I think it's especially for the Cal and Stanford players who are just, I mean, they might as well be better off like going to school at one of the ACC schools and just staying
Yeah.
on that coast and then flying back for the home games.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, have some
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of virtual program or something.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't make any geographical sense whatsoever.
Nah.
No.
But this is where college sports has kind of gone, and it's all kind of encompassed around football.
Mhm.
Yeah. And one thing that doesn't really make sense is also like for football it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense for like Cal and Stanford swimming to not be in the Pac-12. Like they have really, really good swimming or like really good softball or really good volleyball. And now they move to like a worse volleyball conference. So Cal's like trash football team and trash basketball team can be part of the ACC. It just doesn't make sense for like your athletic department. These athletic departments don't really make that much money anyway, so I don't know how they're supposed to be flying these
Yeah.
people all the way across the country.
Well, it's from the TV contracts.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're doing it. That's why they can't afford to do it, because they're getting these lucrative TV contracts, and that's why these schools left in the first place, is because the SEC and the Big Ten have the biggest media deals, and they share all the profits evenly. So each school gets a large sum of money. Um, this happened like 10 years ago when Maryland moved from the ACC to the Big Ten. I mean, Maryland was one of the founding schools of the ACC, and they even had to pay a $10 million fine to leave the ACC, and they still did it because they knew that the TV deals were going to be bigger in the Big Ten because it's a bigger market.
Great move
And-
in hindsight.
Hmm?
Great move by Maryland in hindsight. I bet you they made a ton of money, got a ton
Bet
of
you they made a
prospects from
ton of
a bunch
money, but they
stuff.
lost the respect of every single team in the ACC.
Mhm.
Sure.
I mean,
It really ruins
I
the
hate
matchups,
Maryland
too.
almost just as much as I hate UNC. Like I have a despise for Maryland because it's like,
Because they were the first domino.
well, they weren't necessarily the first domino, but they were the first one that kind of made the move solely for money,
Gotcha.
right? I think Syracuse, like Virginia Tech moved from the Big East and Miami moved from the Big East. But I think that was more for them because they were bigger schools in their conference. And so they wanted to move to a bigger conference that could kind of fit their schools better. And both Miami and Virginia Tech kind of fit, the rest of the schools that are in the ACC. So it made sense. Even Pittsburgh and Syracuse, bringing those teams in, it kind of made sense. But, you know, there's a certain point where, it stops making sense and you're kind of like, all right, what are we doing here?
It just ruins all the matchups and everything too. So now you're just like playing weird teams. None of the vibes are the same. All the rivalries are gone.
Yeah, all the rivalries are kind of destroyed. But like even like with Virginia Tech, I think we play UVA every year, but we no longer play Miami every year.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Miami's one of Virginia Tech's biggest rivals. And that's a game that Tech fans look forward to. It's a big rivalry game for us, and not playing it anymore. So, or it's maybe once in a while, once every
Yeah.
3-4 years.
Yeah. Every couple
Yeah.
years.
West Virginia used to play them every year too. Like
Yeah,
also now there's all weird incentives with like making the playoff and not having your out of conference schedule being too hard because you don't want a loss. So like maybe you don't want to play like a ranked BT every single year because for the rivalry because you don't want that loss on your non-conference schedule. So maybe you only schedule them like every 4 years. I think all those things factor into it too.
Yeah. Well, I think at least for the bigger schools, I think that a lot of them try to schedule those big games because they do make good money, and like
Yeah.
most games don't make a ton of money, but the big games do, and that's what drives the money. And so, like if you've got, I think opening week LSU's playing USC, that's a big game, and so it might have playoff implications down the line.
Mm-hmm.
It helps for because if you have a loss, it does help to have a strong non-conference if you're comparing yourself with like other one-loss teams. If you did play like a LSU or Ohio State non-conference, like even if you lost that game, like showing that you're willing to compete and play those non-conference games, I think does play a factor in the selection. So
Yeah.
I think teams do try to some degree get those like big time matchups, but it's usually like one. It's usually
Yeah.
one non-conference. You're not going to have like two or three. You'll have one strong non-conference opponent, and then you'll have like three, easy games where you're playing like I don't know, South Alabama State or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about the new expanded playoff bracket system, and how will that impact the game? Not only monetarily, but like with players, transfer portal, how will all that impact this? Are teams going to get a little bit more recognition if they make that, 12th spot, right? Even if they lose the game, like how is that going to impact like the tier system of teams? How we see players moving around? What do you guys think?
I think it's good. I think it needed to be more than 4. I don't know what like the exact right number is for it, but it definitely needed to be way more than 4. Um, I think for the near future, it's still probably going to be a couple like top teams, just like still kind of being in their dynasty. But over time, I think it's going to like spread out the talent a little bit, or not have like coaches and players leave as much because you could maybe be like why not go to Coastal and win your conference every year and be guaranteed that you're probably going to like make the playoff and have a shot at a national championship as opposed to like going to try and win at West Virginia where you're punching against the big boys all the time. So I think you could see like those kind of schools going on runs.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally, I think it should have been more than 4 as well. I personally like 8. I think eight's the perfect number because I think there's usually every year around 6 to 8 teams that are, significantly better than the rest of the field. And so I think that that's a good amount because if you get to 12 or 16, then you almost you may have to get rid of a game or two in the regular season because I mean that's a lot of games to play as a player. And
Yeah.
also timing wise, if you want to have it around the same time, that way you're not mixing with the NFL. And because you know, if you
Yeah,
go
lineups.
2 weeks later, then you're competing with the NFL for their games. If you're having your game on Saturday and the NFL's got games on Saturday and Sunday, like then you're going to be competing with the NFL for ratings. So like I think it's kind of you don't want to make it too many. So I think 12 is probably the max that they would want to do it. But I would say 12 or 8 is ideal.
I think I might have saw something where they're already annoyed. One of their Saturday games, like they get a couple Saturday NFL games a year. Already 1 week, I think it's going to be a college football, and I think the NFL's already annoyed about it. So
Yeah.
That's crazy. What do you guys think about that? How the NFL has expanded from basically Thursday and Sunday to Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday now.
It's kind of annoying if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, they've done Monday Night Football for a long time,
Sure.
since like the 70s.
Oh, I got you. I didn't
The
realize that.
Thursday night's newer.
Okay.
But I think, you know, for the fan, it's nice to have football on all the time, but I would say as somebody that enjoys fantasy and plays fantasy, it's annoying as shit. And then I'm
Mhm.
sure as a player, it's annoying as shit. So, like as a fan, it's nice to be able to, go home, get home on Thursday night and put on a football game. But like for fantasy, you're always having to check to see if you've got any players that are playing on Thursday, and like
Mhm.
you have to make sure that you've got your lineup set for Monday. Or like I've had I had a time where there was a guy playing on Saturday and I didn't even realize he was playing on Saturday. Or I think he was playing Sunday morning
Yo, yeah, it was one of like
and
the
he was
Monday
out.
games or
And I
something.
didn't realize he was out. And by the time I like woke up to look, the game had already started.
Mhm.
So I was like, but that's a little different because it's a London game. Um, but even still, that like, and then as a player as well, just you know, I think as a player you like consistency. And so if you're playing on Monday and then you got to play on Sunday and then you got to play on Thursday and then Saturday,
Yeah.
kind of throws off your routine and your kind of the way you go about things every week.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, I mean, their recovery cycles. Those guys get beat the shit out of when they
Yeah.
play the game of
Yeah.
football, right?
I mean, it
So,
makes a hell of a difference if going from playing from Sunday to Thursday, playing from Sunday to Sunday versus playing from
Hmm.
Sunday to Thursday. Like that's
right.
a 3-day difference.
It's definitely for the TV too. I think that's one thing about Thursday football I don't get is other than national television, I don't think there's any point to it. I feel like Monday Night Football too was before like you could watch every single team every week. Like I can sit down in Jersey and watch whoever all across the country, but then like once a week you got the top matchup in the country and everyone could watch those teams and like everyone was watching that game and it used to be a huge deal. I feel like Monday Night Football has kind of lost that like touch that it used to have, and it used to have like a huge aura around it. But I don't mind the Saturday games though. I think that's nice when there's no college football that they put some of those games on Saturday. But it is annoying for fantasy and all that kind of stuff. But I think they're just going to keep expanding to countries and probably be playing on Wednesdays just to make money and have a time slot for viewers. But I also don't watch like every game, so I don't mind. I wouldn't mind having another game to watch on Red Zone on Sundays instead of having that on Thursday.
Yeah, fair enough.
Same. Yeah, I don't really watch every game. I just watch Red Zone. Like so. And it's kind of, you know, if you're a fantasy footballer, like that's mostly what you would watch anyways, because you're just trying to check out the scores and the players and that sort of thing. And then if you're just a regular like NFL fan in general, um, but yeah, I don't really watch all the Thursday night or Monday night games, especially because I mean I don't have cable, so I can't watch Monday night. But I can watch the Thursday night because it's on Prime.
Well, isn't Monday night part of ESPN's package now? So if you do have ESPN subscription, ESPN Plus, you should be able to watch at least the Peyton and Eli show.
Is it? Oh, okay.
They bought the rights to Monday night, and then Prime spent an exorbitant amount of money to buy Thursday night. But in hindsight, again, I think it might have made sense with the way inflation's going right now and the how strong the dollar is comparative to other countries, et cetera, the economy. I think it could have been
Well,
a good investment.
if you're going on the games that the NFL is giving Amazon for Thursday night,
Right,
it definitely does not seem like they want to keep Amazon on.
right. But
They
they signed a long
like
contract. Oh yeah,
excuse me, like the past 2 years have been the shittiest Thursday night football games. They've been awful. Like the matchups, the games themselves, most of them have been terrible.
Yeah, I feel like the quality is always bad. Like, what did they do 4 years ago? They needed a whole like new uniform color rush just to try and get people to watch, and they were all terrible uniforms anyway too. It's I don't think a single player likes playing them. Jason Kelsey is the only person I heard who likes Thursday games, and the reason he said is because then he gets a long week after, so that doesn't even have to do anything with the week leading up to the game and actually playing on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yep. So Amazon paid $11 billion to broadcast Thursday Night Football for 11 seasons back in 2021. Or no,
Did Twitter
2023, this past year.
re-up? Did Twitter sign a TV contract with the NFL too? I thought they might have for some games.
Renewed its content partnership with the NFL. What?
Like all those companies are all owned by the same people anyway.
Yeah, this says
Yep.
in progress game highlights.
That's a
including
different
touchdown
topic for a
moments.
different day.
Yeah.
It says multi-year deal extension, custom content, in progress game highlights, including all touchdown moments. Let's see.
Do you have a problem with like ESPN having a sports book? Do you think that's like I don't know. I feel like all the sports betting could lead to a slippery slope with some of these organizations, but I think it's kind of weird for the broadcasting organization to be like, take these bets.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I also I don't know. Some people like gambling, and I kind of understand it, but personally, to me, I think sports gambling is just stupid. It's like, I don't know. That's just me.
All right, Graham,
I'm-
don't hit a man while he's
Oh,
down.
I
have
agree with you.
and bet, and I enjoy myself. But you
Hey,
know, I'm
if you're gonna
responsible with
bet like $10, I mean that's fine,
Right.
and you're just having fun with it. But
yes,
I mean, to me, it's like I could be spending my time doing much better things than
right.
like trying to put money on a parlay and invest money or invest time into watching it to see if I get my parlay.
Right.
It's like
It
I don't know.
it makes events that I'm already gonna watch a little more fun for me. And I bet
I
like
guess, yeah.
50 cents, $1, 25 cents, and I put stuff on. I wasn't really interested in this year's NBA Finals, to be honest with you. So I bet small parlays on every game because as I'm watching it makes me more interested in what the offense is doing, how they're moving, what players are touching the ball, if Luka's getting rebounds, if Kyrie's making 3-pointers, if Al Horford, has an alley-oop, whatever. I just think that aspect to it is extremely interesting. However, I think it is right there on the edge. You fall over the edge. I mean, it's a legitimate addiction, right? You can spend a lot of money and lose a fuck ton of money doing something like that. So I think if you're responsible and fair with it, and you're not gambling away, money that you can't afford to, I think it's a fun thing to do. But with all these TV ads and the glorification that they put behind sports gambling and casino betting and stuff like that, I think all that shit is terrible. I think ESPN having the ability to promote their own, gambling sports book on their app, on their TV broadcasts. I mean, they have multiple commercials, and each one of their hosts is talking about it every time they leave the screen. So I think that part's a little bit ridiculous and could lead to not so great things. But overall, I do use that sports book. I hate ESPN Bet, but I won a bunch of money off of. I bet $50, the free $50 bet when you first sign up for an account. I bet on Mitch Trubisky to throw 2 interceptions in Steelers versus Colts last year, and that hit for $200. And I've been playing that cash since then.
I just think it's marketed that it's super easy and like fun.
Yes.
And they're
Oh,
like,
yeah,
here's
and-
this free money. And it's not free money, it's like account money. It's not actually money. So everything is just a trick, which I think is not cool when it's gambling. If I'm like buying a sneaker, whatever, you can sell me on it. This is like gambling. I feel like you should be straight up.
Yeah, that's where they trick you. It's like you get $50 free. It's like, well, they're not giving you $50. They're giving $50 into your account. So they're not paying anything for it. You just have $50 in your account.
Right.
And then I don't think you can just cash out like you have to spend the 50.
You have to place a bet and win the wager in order to withdraw the money. So I was
Right.
able to I took out like 140 and left $57 in my account. And that's what I've been playing with. But I put in an initial investment of $10 and I walked away with $140. And that's it. If I lose the rest of my remaining $32 that's in my account, it's over. I'll wait for another promo to come up on DraftKings where they give me $50 for if I, deposit $5. And if I win that, great. If not, that's it, So,
It's just $5.
right. Exactly. So, yeah, I do think sports gambling has been around for quite a long time, though. So,
Yeah, that's true.
something that very much interests me throughout history. I mean, they were gambling on all sorts of shit. And all sorts
Oh, I
of,
mean,
I don't know if they
do,
did it in
do
like
you
the
know about
games, like the Olympic Games in Rome and shit. I'm sure that they did.
do you know about 8 Men Out? Do you know
No,
about the story of the Black
no.
Sox? Okay, so
No, no. Tell us.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like you
Okay.
do, Tyler. Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so back in 1919, the 8 of the Chicago White Sox players um, were involved in a scheme basically to throw the World Series so they could get a bunch of money. And it was orchestrated by Meyer Lansky, who's this really like well-known um, gangster. He's a Jewish gangster from New York. And he kind of orchestrated this whole thing. And then they got caught, and the commissioner banned every player that was involved from the MLB for life. And it kind of set a precedent of like, you know, that was kind of the first stamp, and I think it was probably necessary during that time, um, just to get rid of gambling completely because it wasn't even legal. Gambling wasn't legal at that time, and but they just wanted to wipe it out completely. And I think the next like big baseball scandal involving gambling didn't happen until like 60 years later with Pete Rose.
Rose.
He got caught gambling while he was manager for the Reds, I believe. And
Hey,
same thing happened to him. He got banned
gambling
for
is
life.
legal. Pete Rose should have his shit back. He should be inducted into the Hall of Fame. That's bogus, especially now that.
Well, the problem was he was gambling when he was a manager
Right.
On his own team, I think, too.
on his own team. Yeah.
Fuck it.
So
I wouldn't mind him going in as player only, but got the most hits of all time. Let's come on now.
I
A little bit
think that they
ridiculous.
should give him the benefit of the doubt. He
Yeah.
made a mistake. It wasn't like he was going to have that much of an effect on the game. I mean, he's a manager. Like, how much can a baseball manager do to really affect the outcome of the game? I mean, I understand, like, for
I think he might have been
strategic
betting on the
wise,
Reds to win, too.
Dude, no, the baseball, well, not no to that. I'm pretty sure you're right. To the baseball managers, they do nothing. Absolutely nothing. They
yeah,
basically set the lineup and create the culture in the dugout and the locker room. That is it. They do absolutely nothing else. Chew baseball gum or not baseball gum, bubble gum and eat something.
Pitching change here or there.
yeah,
Yeah.
pitching changes,
Yeah, but all of
pinch
that is already
hitters.
that's already premeditated by the game plan. You know what 4 guys are going to be warming up in the bullpen before the game even starts. There's
That's true.
specific guys that run certain pitch counts. It's all calculated out. They have people behind the scenes that run the statistics and deliver it to them on a fucking postcard before each game. They give one to each player, so every player knows the statistics of like
That's crazy, I think.
percentages of like zones on the field where each player hits, what kind of pitches they usually swing at, so players know how to react to different things. I mean, it's all like super down to science. The manager does absolutely shit during like a game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I kind of figured that, but you said it much better than I could have said it. So
I don't know how I feel about all those players having the cards in baseball, too. Like, every batter comes up, you just, like, look down, tells you where to stand, basically. Like, it's stupid.
Yeah. It usually took some game sense. You'd have to figure some shit out for your own.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
made specific outfielders so impressive, prior to that.
I think in a way players like aren't as good today because of analytics like that, because you don't have to like figure any of that out for yourself or figure out I play shortstop better like this because the numbers just tell you to stand over there and you just go stand over there, or they tell you to swing at these pitches or not swing at these pitches.
Yeah, I think good may be the wrong word to use there. I think talented would be a little bit better because I think players would naturally have to be much better at baseball. Now they can potentially just work harder and use analytics to find out the stats of basically what to do. I mean, they run them through all kinds of scenarios with pitching machines and all kinds of shit about where other teams are saying they are the least likely to hit pitches at in the zone, or if they're hitting more breaking balls or fastballs, X, Y, and Z. So I think, yeah, it takes, all the guesswork out of it. The players don't have to be nearly as savvy in the game of baseball as they used to.
Mhm.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Craziness.
which I think is the opposite of when you look at a sport like football or basketball. I think the players, it's pretty clear that the players have gotten significantly better, especially basketball. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's like it's night and day. I mean, if you took an NBA team from the 80s, excluding like the Celtics and the Lakers, but just like an average team from the 80s, take an average team in the NBA today, they would blow the 80s team out of the water. Like it
Yep.
wouldn't even, they would probably win by 20.
Oh, yeah.
Just the pace of play, the skill of the players. I mean, and it's because you put more time into it now.
Yes. You have to.
Baseball, I think part of it is that baseball, you play so much already. It's like you don't really have much time to, like, you're just playing all the time. Whereas basketball, there's so much training involved, not just playing, that goes into it. I think that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. To put it into frame of context, for those of you out there that don't know the length of an MLB season, it is 162 games. Typically, teams have one, maybe two off days per week. They play 3-game series against other teams, in the league, depending on what division they're in, yada, yada. But they play 3 days in a row, either home or away stand, and then they travel. Sometimes they get the pleasure of having 6 games at home in a row. That is not always the case. They might have to travel twice in a week. So it's probably brutal to be a professional baseball player. And not only that, the league is so competitive. You have a huge farm system that's all based in the United States. I mean, we have AAA, AA, and single A teams for all 30 teams in the MLB. I mean, think about how many players are in that, field of play, and like how many analytics you have to go through, how many prospects you're going over, and it dives further into that. As we progress in the world of sport, you're seeing kids younger and younger and younger, being evaluated for top athletes, like how they're going to grow. I mean, back to your point earlier, Graham, the guys in the NBA are literally built for basketball. Their body types are perfect for the game of basketball. Long wingspan, tall, limber frame, strong, long legs. I mean, the who do I like to use as an example? He played for the Pelicans. I think he's still on the Pelicans. Brandon Ingram. He looks
Yeah,
like he has a short neck, but his shoulders are like out to here. And I'm like, dude, that's what you
slender
want.
man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's
So,
bulked up a bit since he was in college. Because in
mhm.
college he was a stick. I
Oh
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was.
he but
Joel was
yeah, I
too.
mean
Joel was tiny.
yeah, he's beefed up quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'll say I didn't know he was ever skinny.
With
Well,
Twig.
skinnier than he is now. I mean, but any guy that's that tall, they didn't start out fat. Like being a tall guy myself, like you have to bulk up. You got to build up. You are a twig. Like you could be eating as
Yeah.
much food as you possibly can. Like I remember I ate so much when I was growing up. But like just Liam for reference, I'm 6'7".
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like when I was growing up, like I was always skinny and I could never bulk up. And it was just because I was always growing and my body was trying to catch up. And so like for tall guys, it's you know, like Shaq when he was growing up, when he was younger, he was skinny. Like it wasn't until like when he went to the Lakers and he bulked up a lot and kind of got fat. But
Yeah.
like tall guys don't start out, kind of fat. They all start out really skinny. I mean, you look at Giannis, Victor Wembanyama, Porzingis, like they're all pretty slender guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that NBA meal plan and workout routine that really helps with bulking you up. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Actually, the one exception would be Jokic. Jokic is the only guy that like
Yeah.
that became skinnier.
yeah,
Like
Because he probably had to run more than he did in
yeah,
Florida.
because the altitude or something up there just making them gassed.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been awesome. I just want to kind of get into one more thing before we get going here. We're kind of around the almost hour and a half mark. I'd like to talk about the most recent golf championship that happened last week because it was a relatively historic ending. Um, and yeah, that only happens once a year, the US Open. Obviously, we do have the four major events, but US Open happens once a year. This year, it happened to be at Pinehurst Number 2. For those of you who don't know, is a world-renowned course in what is it? Right outside of Charlotte, North
Southern
Carolina.
Pines, North
Southern
Carolina.
Pines, North
It's
Carolina.
about an hour south of Raleigh, hour east of Charlotte.
Yep, and it's known to be an extremely difficult course. We saw that this past week, where I think 6, 7 players finished under par for the championship. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know quite how much golf you guys watch. I watch every week, so yeah, it was kind of impactful to see some of those guys come in because I think a couple of them, like Pavone, the Frenchman, he's doing well this week. He came out of nowhere. He's just having a hot streak. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah, and the amateur winner as well. I forget his name.
Chipley,
Chipley. Yeah, didn't he
Nick
win
Shipley.
Chipley? Didn't he win the amateur at the Masters as
He won the
well?
he won the low amateur at the Masters and at the U.S. Open. He went 2 years, I want to say, at JMU, and then he transferred to Ohio State to play his last 2 years. He's one of the best amateurs on tour right now, so hopefully he'll come up big sometime soon. Since he plays so high in both those events, he has automatic entry into both of those events last year because he was a low amateur. And
You
if
mean
he
next
gained,
year?
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And if he gains tour status, he can play legitimately and not under an amateur tag anymore. But I don't know if you guys know how that works. If Since
No.
Bryson won the U.S. Open, he gets exemption to all four majors for 10 years. If you're on the PGA Tour, you get exemption into all PGA Tour events for 5 years. And then you get a bunch of added, other benefits. Like if you win the Masters, you get a green jacket, and that grants you membership to Augusta National Golf Club. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of implications in where the players are placing every week. Specific tournaments placing in the top 10 will grant you access to certain events in the future. In the following years, golf's a crazy sport. It's all theatrics and fucking moving numbers behind the scenes, and these guys are just so incredible to watch play. It's so difficult.
Yeah, well, going back to the U.S. Open, like this weekend. I mean, this past weekend. I mean, I only watched Sunday, the final round. I didn't see the other 3 rounds, but that was an incredible round of golf. It was very enjoyable to watch, and I was watching it with my dad and then his best friend, and they were like shitting on Bryson the whole time, and I low key kind of wanted Bryson to win, so
Me
I
too.
was like, I was I was rooting for Bryson, but they were both like wanting Rory to win, and then um,
Yeah, I would
but
prefer Rory.
I'm kind of happy for Bryson. He gets a lot of shit,
Yes.
but
I agree.
it's I don't see what the big deal is. Like
Anymore, he used to be kind of a doucher.
I guess,
And
but I
but
don't really
but
know.
he hired a good PR rep. He changed his attitude. I think a lot of people's opinions have changed on him. When I was at my 9-hole men's league on Tuesday, we walked out and the guys, introduced themselves to us. We played two twosomes, and first question out of the dude's mouth: "What do you think about Bryson DeChambeau this past weekend?" Yada yada yada. And I'm like, you know what? I'm happy for the guy. My opinion on him has changed, and I think that was relatively good for the sport of golf. And he's like, you know what? I agree with you. I'm like, so I think more people are on that wavelength than you realize. I do, however, agree with your dad and his buddy's opinion of him prior to about a year-ish ago.
Yeah.
I think he did a good job turning his media team around, got portrayed in a little bit better of a light, showed people who he really is. He was never really that person. That's just kind of what he was captured as on the golf course at those events, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I feel like he's like exciting. I feel like golf needs him. I feel like a lot of the big names are kind of just like pretty monotone and like deadpan too. So I get early on he rubbed people the wrong way, but I also feel like people kind of join and have an attitude, and then they get like a reputation, and then it kind of fades after a couple of years.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
personally did not want Rory to win. Obviously, he absolutely choked, and I like felt terrible for him. I think he dropped
Mhm.
out this. I don't think he's playing this weekend or the
He's
next
not playing
upcoming
this week.
tournament.
He withdrew.
I will say the greens are hard, obviously. Like famously at the U.S. Open, it's hard courses, and those greens were pretty tough. But he should have made both of those putts, if you ask me. I think Deschambault missed one at 16 too, though, so that evened out. And then obviously Rory missed one at 18. But
Yeah.
like I think he should have made the Olympic team too. I don't know why he's not on it, if you ask me. I probably would have
That's
taken
Well,
Wyndham
Clark off
Clark.
and put him on.
Wyndham Clark. Yeah, Wyndham Clark
Not a
should
fan of
never have
his.
made that team.
well, they
Like
do it based on the golf rankings. So he's
OWGR.
not
He's
even
in
on the
live.
golf rankings
Yeah.
Well, no,
because he's
he
in
is.
live.
He is still on the golf rankings because he won this tournament, but he's at like
He,
17th because he
Right.
doesn't
I actually
have
think
any.
But
he's top 10 off majors or something.
Is he? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he
well,
very well could be.
he got on the list just from that major, and he didn't play any of the other events.
Right.
But like, he's clearly. I mean, I think you have obviously Scotty. I think
Mhm.
you put Scotty there and then Bryson. I don't think. I mean, you could maybe say Xander, who I
Xander's
think is going.
he's been playing very well.
He's been playing very well.
Yeah,
So
he's good.
I don't think that's a bad place to credit Xander, and he's because he won the PGA Championship, right?
No, Scotty won the PGA Championship. Xander won another event this year, and he actually choked last year to Wyndham Clark at the U.S. Open
Okay.
when Ricky
Well,
Fowler was
he
also.
won a major recently, I think.
Did he? He won something.
I think so.
I think he just won the PGA right before this
Maybe you're
Yeah,
right.
didn't
Yeah,
Scotty win the Masters?
Masters.
Scotty won the Masters and the Open
He
Championship.
got arrested at the PGA, right?
Oh yeah, that was
That's
funny.
right, and he ended up losing.
In
Yeah,
Louisville,
that's
right?
right. Yep. Yeah, you guys are right. But
I
another thing
think
I kind of wanted.
Deschambault got second there. Sorry.
Yes.
That,
No,
yeah.
something I wanted to add to that was with the division between Live and PGA, it's hard to see the true competitive nature of golf because you have a guy like Scotty Scheffler basically dominating the field, but the next, probably arguably the next 2 to 3 best players in the world aren't even playing all those tournaments with him. So
Right.
it's tough to put him up against somebody like Tiger Woods, right, which people are obviously comparing him to because it's 2024 and the internet goes crazy. But not only that, but like, players in the regular season on the PGA Tour currently, it's hard to know if he truly is that dominant guy, that X factor that they can get it all done. I guarantee you, in a couple of those events, some guys slide it off the board and he kind of just won. You know what I mean? So provide better competition, I think, and be better for the game. But as Graham and I were talking about earlier, the whole ethics isn't really there. Ethics and morals, the Saudi backed Live League, that's a whole issue. So it's hard to definitively say, what they should do. I'm not a
Right.
big CEO.
I think eventually they're going to merge, but part of the problem is, say what you want about Live, but I mean they are bringing a different form of golf. They're trying something new that is more kind of choreographed to the fans and orchestrated for them, and so it brings the fans into it more. Like
Yep.
we were talking about, you can just watch the Live tournaments on YouTube. You don't have
Right.
to be subscribed to the golf channel or
Right.
whatever.
They just stream
So
it.
it's just easier access. And so I think for the PGA, like they need to start doing things more for the fans and get the fans involved more, because that's what Live seems to be doing right. And they
Well,
also are getting some of the best players, and it's not
Well,
just because of the money.
right. To your point there, PGA did invest in a new league with Tiger and Rory and like JT and all those guys as the poster boys. It's called like the Tiger Indoor Golf League or something like that, and it's made up of teams and they play on simulators or some shit in different states. So I guess they're trying to expand. I really don't see the viewership or the what am I trying to say, like the I don't feel like I'd be drawn to something like that, to be honest
No.
with you. So
I think what they should do is like ultimately what they could end up doing is if they merge, then you have like a two separate leagues that kind of like the Super Bowl where you just have like you stay separated, but then at the end of the year you do match play with like the top players of each league and they fight in battle
yeah,
against each other or something like that.
yeah, and there's interleague
Mhm.
tournaments, like the four majors, and then some other stuff
Yeah.
potentially, and then even the two leagues could have different formats. I totally agree with you. All right, well, I'm gonna stop taking up all your guys' time. We're gonna wrap it up here, but I have one more quick question before we go, and maybe that'll help some viewers roll over to our next one. Might be a good prompt for the next sports room. So, what is your favorite athlete, or who is your favorite athlete of all time? No holds barred on any sport. Who would be your favorite? If you had to choose one, you can give me a couple if you want.
You want to go first, Tyler? You got one?
Do I want to go first? One of my favorites would probably have to be Tiger, um, and MJ, of course. I think the reason why I like them was because they were such dedicated hard workers. They pretty much transformed their sport in terms of media and marketing. Um, Jordan a little bit differently than Tiger. Tiger was just all out unreal for 20 odd years with all the drama going on with him. Jordan didn't really have as much. I think his trajectory was a tad different, but obviously winning 6 championships in Chicago while taking an off year to play baseball is pretty damn impressive. So those would probably be my guys just because those are probably the sports I subscribe to the most, that and football, but I don't think I could choose any one football player because the all-time greats like Tom Brady is mid to me. I don't love his personality. I don't like the guy. I do respect him as a football player though, type of deal. So those would probably have to be my two of my favorites. Also love like Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, all those home run hitters that I watched growing up to add in some baseball guys.
You're doing your favorites or like do you think the best?
No, your favorite.
Your favorites. I think mine are probably all like local Philly guys from like my childhood growing up. It's probably who all my favorite athletes are. I don't know if I have one favorite, but Scott Hartnell was my guy growing up on the Flyers. I don't know if you watch hockey at all, but he's just got like long curly hair. He was like actually good, but also a clown at the same time. So he's sick. He was
Yep.
a perfect Philly guy. But and then Cole Hamels was my favorite Philly growing up.
Mm-hmm.
The Sixers were pretty bad when I was growing up. Honestly, we were doing like the process and all that kind of stuff. But Iverson's an easy one for them. You
Sure.
can't not love like every single thing about him. But I'll probably say my favorite Philadelphia athlete of all time is Deshaun Jackson. He was like my first favorite Eagle. I still have my like black Deshaun Jackson medium Eagles jersey that somehow fits me, and you can like barely see the numbers on it. But he was sick, and he's arguably the best deep threat in NFL history. Maybe second behind Randy Moss, but I'll throw him out there for number one. I'll probably say Deshaun. He's my guy.
Love it.
I'd probably say my favorite athlete. You can say that with quotations because he's not really an athlete, but Nikola Jokic, like the least athletic athlete of all time, yet he somehow just balls out and it's like he's got a less vertical than I do, and I have a shitty ass vertical, and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yet he's still like barely can dunk, but just um and I kind of the way I used to play when basketball when I was younger is very similar to the style that he plays as
I'm
well.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we used to
I
play
kind of
pickup games all the time in college. Graham was the big, and I always had to fucking guard him. And I'm like, Graham is just so knowledgeable about the game of basketball, so it's tough. It's tough, and you got a couple inches on me. So that's why I'd always scream at Luis and Ben to come hack you, because there's no way I could stop you from posting me up and
Yeah.
making a layup every time.
I remember, I think it was like 2020 during COVID,
Yes.
and we were watching Jokic, and I was like, this guy's the greatest second round basketball player. He's second round draft pick of all time.
Yeah, you did. I
And
remember you saying that.
I like, he is, and he's going to be like, and I remember our friends Jacob and Ben
Mhm.
thought I was crazy. They
Yep.
like were arguing me for 2.5 hours over this. They gave me shit for it, and then now it's like crickets.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know,
Should I play it?
I don't even have to say anything.
But
There we go. Yeah, well, shout out Jacob and Ben. Ben has been on the podcast. I've yet to get Jacob on here. Would love to do so. Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending some time with me on this Friday night. This is something I'd like to do about once a month. I think it'd be great to have some sports updates. Next time, maybe we'll bring some more structured stuff, talk about historic teams of a couple leagues, organizations, some stuff like that. But appreciate you both and your vast amount of sports knowledge. Liam, to be honest with you, I didn't know you knew that much shit. I was hoping that you did, so you definitely delivered.
Yeah, I
I
got you.
appreciate you. Graham has been on the podcast a few times, so I kind of had an idea what was going on there. But for those of you out there, thanks for sticking with us for this long. I know it's been a little bit of a longer one, and you'll be back to seeing our beautiful faces sometime soon in the near future. If you would, please check us out on all your social media platforms, wherever you consume your podcast. We are the Slanted Attic Experience, and we'll see you on the next sports room. Peace out.
Peace.
Peace.